Hello. It is actually the full moon in Virgo today, and Saturn will be ingressing into his new sign of Pisces today, stepping out within just a few hours. He will be stepping out of Aquarius and into Pisces. And I did videos on both of those things last week, but today this video is about, I don't want to say a bigger ingress. Ingress is just when a planet goes into another sign. But it is a huge, huge deal. And this is Pluto's ingress into Aquarius. So it happens within days of the Saturn moving out of Aquarius, Pluto moves in. It's almost like a tag team, like a relay race of work that we are doing in the realm of Aquarius as we are in the Aquarian age. So I've drawn up what's called a mundane chart, and a mundane chart is just a chart for an issue, something at the moment, like a mundane chart for the ingress, in this case, of Pluto into Aquarius. So I'm going to share my screen, and we will jump into having a look at what this could mean for us. And where this is interesting is that Pluto is a generational planet. He is the furthest out in the solar system of all the planets we work with. And for those of you saying Pluto's not a planet, sure, he was downgraded, but we really think of him as a planet. In fact, he might be the smallest, but he's got this really strong reputation for making big things small and small things big. Historically, there's so many interesting things we can look at if we dive into the history of when Pluto has been operating on certain different levels. But we're not planning to do any of that today. Today, we really just want to have a look at what is this ingress, because whenever the planet makes its first step into a sign, it gives us a little bit of a hint as to the flavor of what his journey through Aquarius will be. Now, that is a 20-year journey. So this is not a small conversation. And also, he's not staying in Aquarius. He's just dipping his toe in Aquarius for a few months before heading back to Capricorn, and then back, and then he'll move in fully. It's a process because Pluto moves so slowly with almost a 250-year cycle. Just under 250 years. So that means for him to go all the way around the wheel is 250 years. This also means that he spends a long time at every single degree on the 360-degree wheel, making his presence known, transforming, alchemizing. He is about powerful transformation and change. And he is not an energy we can deny. So looking at Saturn, if you haven't watched that video, check it out on my YouTube. We're looking at Saturn. He's also slow. He tends to take 2.5 to 3 years in a sign. So there is a process that happens with Saturn. He's not a quick fix. He's not like the moon, who moves within every 2.5 days through a sign. He takes some time, but nothing like the time that Pluto takes. That's kind of like next level time. We in our lifetimes will never see Pluto through all of the signs, whereas we are likely to do that at least twice for the average person with Saturn, see Saturn through all of the signs at least twice. So this is a big deal, and it takes us into the next 20 years. And wherever you are in your own life right now, think about what time frame that is looking at for you. Like, where does the next 20 years take you? Through what areas or what sort of age realm of your life? Are you still at school and you will be seeing yourself into the workforce? Are you young in a family, starting to grow your family, and this will see you through growing your children up? Are you moving towards retirement, and that will see you into that? Where does this find you? And we obviously see over here, here's Pluto, and he is at 0 degrees and 0 minutes of Aquarius. And at the point at which he does that, we want to look at where all the other planets are. What are the conversations in the sky? And what kind of an indication is that going to give us about his 20-year, ostensibly his 20-year journey? And first we come back to Saturn and we see, well, Saturn, who's now at 1 degree and 49 minutes of Pisces, has moved out of the sign that Pluto is now stepping into. And just to say, this is the 24th of March that this happens. Sorry, I never mentioned that. Okay, so Saturn has had, I think it's less than 2 weeks in the sign of Pisces, he's just starting to get the feel for what his Pisces feeling is. And remember, Saturn is kind of like the karmic work that we can do. Do your work, put in the time, put in the effort, and you will gain mastery. Pluto isn't really about gaining mastery. He's just about a deep transformation that you don't really have much control over, where we can develop more control with Saturn. So as we feel Saturn just developing into his like, okay, so this is what it feels like for me to be in my Pisces journey. And you can look back, if you have already had Saturn in Pisces in your lifetime, you can even look back and say, what was that for me? Because that is where Saturn is at the time of Pluto's ingress. That very likely could mean that there will be certain Saturn work for the next 20 years that will have a Piscean flavor for you. It will not always actually be in Pisces, but it'll show you where your strong work is. And I spoke into this Saturn video about if you have your Saturn in a mutable sign or on one of the angular houses, that will be even more pronounced. But then I want you to just look how congested this is here. See all this Aries energy. How crazy is that? So we have 3 of the 5 personal planets in Aries. We have Sun and Moon. Sun at the very beginning, Moon at the very end of Aries. And it's just days after a new moon in Aries. And this particular year, we're having 2 Aries new moons, which rarely happens. I think it was 2004 the last time. I might be wrong, but it was some time ago that we had 2 Aries new moons in a year. Normally, there's 1 new moon of each sign in a year. So it's already a big deal that we're having a new moon at the beginning of Aries and at the end of Aries. And what's so interesting in this ingress chart for me is that we will have just had the new moon a day or so before, and the moon is just about to touch at 26 degrees of Aries, the place that it will be for the next new moon in Aries at this point. So it's holding Sun and Moon, which are our great lights, our luminaries in the sky, are holding like bookends, the 2 sides of the sign of Aries. And Aries is very much about pioneering, diving in head first, courageous, sometimes like the phrase, more guts than brains comes to mind. For those of us who have Aries placements, it doesn't matter if it's in the first, second, or third decan of the sign, which just means the first 10 degrees, second 10 degrees, or third 10 degrees of the sign. It's going to be an impactful day that this ingress happens for you, because there are planets in all 3 decans of Aries, but it also indicates that you are really on track to work with Pluto's next 20-year journey through Aquarius in an exceptionally pioneering, illuminating kind of way. This also can show if it's going into shadow. We would look at shadow Aries traits of being very triggered, very triggering, very reactive, spontaneous, act before you think, aggressive. So there are obviously always going to be 2 sides. We can look at the youthful, energetic, courageous, playful, confident side of Aries, and then we can look at the shadow. So Aries energy feels very important in this journey that Pluto is undertaking through Aquarius. Now, Aquarius in itself is a sign that is all about the collective. It's all about where the opposite sign being Leo is, say, the king, and Aquarius being the kingdom, or the queen bee and the hive mind. So you can see the balance. But when we're speaking into the energy of Aquarius, we're looking at what can we do for the future to make a better future, to revolutionize and change what isn't working. And very much like this level, not top-down power, it's very equal footing. So we're wanting to throw away all sorts of ageism, sexism, racism, all the isms, and make a equal future for everyone, which is quite idealistic in many ways, but that's why we've been seeing the unraveling with Pluto's journey through Capricorn, which is more top-down power. We've been seeing where that isn't working. We've been seeing the breakdown of that. Now, bearing in mind, like any sign, there will be things through Pluto's journey in Capricorn where he will bring up stuff that is, wow, that top-down power business, the haves and the have-nots, that is not okay. It's not cool. And how do we do it differently? But equally, where has that worked? So we need to learn what has worked and what hasn't worked, and how do we bring in a balance? Because of course we can find imbalance in any sign. For Aquarius, we might be looking at very frazzled nervous systems. It has a lot to do with technology. So we might be finding much more kind of virtual reality kind of things like bots taking over the world, metaphorically, hopefully metaphorically speaking, you know, a lot of that type of thing where tech gets smarter. And where is that a good thing for humanity, and where is that not a good thing for humanity? So it can go really broad, right? It's not just one thing. But I do feel like because Aquarius is a sign of revolutionizing for the future, and Aries is like a new beginning kind of energy, the baby pioneering, you know, popping out of the birth canal, coming out head first and being like, right, here I am, new world. What do you need from me? So I love the combination of Pluto stepping into this Aquarian energy at the same time that we have this host of pioneers ready to build that new world, even if we're afraid. Because that's one thing about Aries, is they kind of do act before they think. And sometimes it's a good thing, because if we get up into our into our minds, into our analytic selves, we can get stuck with an analysis paralysis and not act. Now, with all this Aries energy, it feels like it's impossible for us not to act. We are going to burst forth to create this new world. On that note, we also have a few energies in the sign of Taurus, which is an absolutely beautiful building energy. And one of those is Venus, who is another personal planet. And Venus is all about love and money and what we value. And she's very happy there because she rules that sign. So she's very happy to be in the sign of Taurus. She is applying to a conjunction with Uranus and in conjunction with the North Node. So our value system taking us, she's very much feeling into the new values of the new world so that we can progress to our highest Dharma, which is obviously a really positive thing. She's coming to meet at the point of this ingress. She's coming towards moving on to meet up with Uranus, which it will still take her a little over a week to do that. But Uranus is about shocks, revolutions, and paradigm shifts. So it's like at the point of Pluto's entry, she's really evaluating, what do I need to build? What are my values? Or what, in fact, even are our values for this new world? And she might feel like she's just getting a handle on that and then have a sudden revelation, change of plans, change of thought, change of heart, because she does rule that kind of heart self as she comes towards Uranus, which really gives us another, and Uranus is the ruler, the modern ruler of Aquarius, which does give us another revolutionary idea. In fact, speaking of Uranus being the modern ruler, in modern astrology, we associate Uranus with Aquarius. And by that token, he has an extra connection, an extra power over Pluto. But in traditional astrology, ancient astrology, Saturn is the ruler of Aquarius. That gives him a certain dominion over Pluto. Not that anyone really can have much dominion or control over Pluto, in my personal opinion. But that does show you that the energy that we're finding in the Saturn moving into Pisces, which we already touched on, and the Uranus sitting there in Taurus, really the building energy, and Uranus doesn't really like to be in Taurus, but that building energy of to restructure, and maybe I need to just burn it down so I can build it up kind of energy. And he's been there for a few years already. Those two energies also are very important for Pluto moving into the sign of Aquarius, because they are also giving a flavor to Pluto's journey. And then we have Mars who has had like an 8-month journey by this point in Gemini, which is a very long time. And Mars is not at his best in Gemini, and he is now at the 29th degree. Now, when we get to the last degree of a sign, it's kind of like that degree on steroids. It tells the story of everything in the journey through that sign to this point, and it's like wrapping it in a bow and saying, this is what you got from this journey, or this is what you could have got from this journey. And that can be good or bad stuff. But because Mars, who doesn't like moving backwards, has done a whole retrograde here, he's been long journey. I mean, he also had his whole shadow period. He's recently out of shadow by the time we get to this place. He's kind of starting to breathe. He's starting to get momentum. He's actually about to move into a sign he's not very fond of. He's less happy in Cancer, where he's moving next, than he even is in Gemini. So that's also, I'm almost glad he's not quite there. Like instead, Mars, who sometimes is a little bit impulsive, he's at a space in Gemini here where he really has to just hold the gravitas of a big reflective journey that showed duality to him in a way that he couldn't avoid. And he had to look at two paths. He had to look at the old way and the potential new way. And Mars is how we get what we want. So he is now at this point, before he steps into the nurturing sign of Cancer, he gets a chance to go, this is what I experienced through my very, very long journey in Gemini. And now I get to choose, as I step into the sign of Cancer, what do I want to nourish now? Imagine that he has birthed twin choices, and as he steps into the next sign, he gets to choose which twin he feeds. And that's a terrible analogy if you're actually thinking about starving one baby. But let's go. Let's retract that to the tale of two dragons, the shadow and the light dragon. And you decide which dragon you feed. And the one you feed is the one that you grow forward with. So you can feed the darkness. You can feed the old world that's no longer there. You can lament all that you have lost. You have every right to do that. That's your choice. Or you can do the other thing. You can feel the grief and the pain and the loss, feel saddened by it, and really hold that pain and hold that story and hold that history. And you can move into nourishing the potential of what will be, what could be, the ideal, which is Aquarius, the ideal of a new world where it is more fair and more equal and more aligned with the new earth. So that for me is also actually quite a nice place for him to be, and I feel really positive about that. We still have Neptune in Pisces. Neptune's happy in Pisces. It's also continuing this deep sense of the dream. I do feel like it just always, Neptune in Pisces is going to be a caution of don't fall into your into illusion and delusion and addiction, because those are some of the shadow traits of both Pisces and Neptune. So dream the dream. But again, what dream do you feed? Do you feed the nightmare? Do you hook into what the nightmare is bringing you every night? Or do you manage to dream walk into a better future? And how do you balance that out for yourself? Don't numb yourself. That is a very important part of this. We are grieving the death of the old as a collective, and we need to grieve it, and it hurts. And we're all having to walk away from things we didn't want to walk away from. And that may be very personal. You can personalize that depending on your own life story, or it may be a bigger collective for you. But I don't think there's a human alive right now that isn't having to walk away from something they didn't want to walk away from, whether it was snatched from you or whether you had to make that choice. Either way, there is grief to be had. There are deep feelings that, you don't want to have. Nobody really wants to have those crappy feelings, but we must have them. We must feel them through so that we don't start to numb them, dull them, pretend that they're not there, because your body keeps a score. It's there, whether you want to accept it or not. And at some point it will catch you. And what that also brings me to, we spoke about how Venus was conjunct the North Node here, but opposite side of the chart is the South Node of what we are releasing. And that is in Scorpio. And we are in this deep release phase. And Scorpio literally rules like the bowel and the rectum. So what is it that you are excreting right now? You are excreting the deep, dark traumas, the deep grief, the skeletons in your family closet. This is a perfect sort of space. The next 20 years are going to be such a revolutionary phase, an evolutionary phase for us, releasing some deep ancestral wounding, deep karmic bonds that are in our cells, but it's epigenetic. It's not what you experience. It's maybe not even what your parents experienced. It's what your great-grandparents experienced. It's what your cultural heritage experienced. It's what your gender experienced, which brings us right back to getting rid of the isms. We cannot get rid of racism if we don't feel where our part in that was, even if it's not you yourself. Remember, this is so much the collective, so much of a generational healing, that you didn't have to do the racist thing, the sexist thing, the classist thing, the anyist thing. You didn't have to do it yourself for it to be in you. And you can be part of the healing and transformation of that, which is huge. It's huge. It's confusing because it might not be from your own actual memory. It might be from your ancestral memory, from a past life memory, from who knows where. So it's not clean cut. It's not cut and dry. And I have to say, this forecast is going in a far more sort of channeled spiritual direction than I anticipated. I have learned to trust my guides with these things. So I'm definitely going to release the video, but this is just to say that because this is not, for want of a better phrase, black or white, we may need support. And don't be afraid to reach out for support. And that support can come in many, many different forms. I offer support in terms of readings, astrology readings, card readings, healing sessions, and many other things through my courses. I offer a lot of support in the ways that I can support, but that support may also come from a reconnection with a friend that you thought you had lost, or a releasing of a friend that is no longer serving you, or I mean, I can't even start to get into the different ways that support can be there for you. It could be about supporting your body with a better diet and routine, exercise routine. There's many ways that you can do it, but we'll all need support. We will all need support on some level. It is not weak to get support. And in fact, I come back to what the whole mission of Aquarius is. And we are in the Aquarian age. The whole mission of this is to be a collective, is to work and support each other. And the more we're trying to be stuck in, ourselves, because we can't trust that people will be there to catch us in that net of support, the harder the challenge is for us. So I do feel like it's really important that you look for what you're needing, look for where you're struggling. How can you support yourself in that? What do you need? And then trust your intuition and reach out, because this is going to be a big day. But Pluto is such a slow planet, you will feel it on the day. But it's more about how it will slowly imbue into the world. In fact, it has already started pre the actual shift, and it will be very much more noticeable on the shift. But when we look back in 20 years, then that is when we will really get the zoomed out big picture of what this has been, what the lessons were. So I hope that's been interesting. It's given you a little snapshot of what direction we are likely to be taking, and we're on this journey together. So let's see how it goes. As I say, I am available for a lot of different options. Links down below if you are interested in getting in touch. And thank you for your time. Have a beautiful day.